Next, we have a session on the AI in human-centric design for robots. This session will explore how AI is being integrated into the design of robots to enhance human interaction and usability. Please join me in welcoming Olivia Tian, the moderator for today's session. A little introduction about Olivia. Olivia has over 30 years of experience working within the information technology sector, including public service. He has delivered complex and large-scale projects in international markets and a variety of cultures. A self-starter who believes in creating something out of nothing, he is also a fond believer of technology, augmenting human capability and extending potential. The stage is yours, Olivia.
Thank you. Very good afternoon to all you. Welcome to this panel discussion. I have the privilege of bringing on board two overseas talents who is going to share with you some of the very important discussion on AI. AI, as we all know it, has recently caught a lot of attention. And if you look at the agenda for these 3 days, there are many, many discussions, whether it's presentations or panel on AI. The question is, how much do we understand AI? And I was here in the last two panels. One of the questions that came out was the fact that will AI replace us? My normal response to that is that AI as a technology will not replace you. But the person who knows AI will. So it's very important that we understand what AI can do for you. We need to embrace AI and use it to your best advantage. It is also important to understand that at the end of the day, whatever we do with AI, it has to be human-centric. Human-centric means that we build systems that incorporate AI technology meant for us, humans, to take advantage of, to deal with. So please join me in welcoming my two panelists, Mr. Francisco Weber, coming all the way from Austria, and Mr. Pablo Alvarez, if I got it right, Alvarez, who comes all the way from Ireland. Please, gentlemen, please take a seat. Now, we have this very interesting topic on adopting AI in a human-centric design. But this is very important because at the end of the day, you do not want to use AI, and at the end of the technology makes it very difficult for us to use. We have to build a system that allows us to take advantage of what the technology can provide for us. And that's a discussion that we're going to have. Let me first give you a little brief thoughts around what we are trying to say. So at the end of the day, human-centric design is really what we want to build, and it is an approach that takes human at the heart of the design process. When we design something, it must be intended for use by the human. You can have a smart city, great infrastructure put in place with all the sensors and the cloud computing technology, but if the humans are unable to use that technology, that's as good as a white elephant. And similarly for the use of AI, it is so important that the AI is built in such a way that you can best take advantage of that. So we're going to have that discussion. Now, of course, in 30 minutes, it's probably not easy for us to cover everything, but we'll try to cover as much as we can. And I'm also going to welcome you to our panel, our forum tomorrow at the Accelerate stage, where we have a lot more experts coming from different countries to share with you a lot of thoughts around the use of AI in the robotic space. So I'm going to firstly allow each of the panelists to kind of briefly introduce themselves, tell us a bit more about what they do, and then we'll dive deep into the discussion. First, Pablo, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, sure. So thank you all to be here. And yeah, my name is Pablo Alvarez, and I am originally from Argentina, but then I lived most of my life in Spain. And like around 10 years ago, I decided to move to Ireland. And like around when the pandemic started, I joined Learnaway Centre at Trinity College Dublin in Ireland. And yeah, like in terms of the topic of this panel, as a telecommunications engineer, I've seen how the different technology has advanced and progressed through the years, and I've seen that coming back to the human-centric design topic. I've seen that with my different lenses, with my different hats. So I've seen that as a user, I've seen that as a learner, as an educator later, then as a software developer, and finally now as a tech lead and innovation consultant. So yeah, so that's how I see like from my background, the advances of the technology.
Thank you. Francisco?
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Francisco Weber. I'm the founder of Cortical.io, a company in Austria that started about 12 years ago to research and implement high efficiency AI. So the region where I'm coming from, this was earlier than that with my previous company in search technology. And as it turned out, already search technology turned out to be very resource hungry. And so it became basically a specific interest of mine in figuring out how handling language in general, that's what our company is doing, can be much more efficient. And I was not actually expecting in the year 2011 that this will become such a burning topic at some point, which we are facing today, that on one hand, we can actually see that language is in fact computable, which has been proven, I would say. But at what cost? At what cost in the sense of being very, very energy intensive? And if we look at our reference organ that produces language, which is our brain, we can see that there must be much easier and much more energy efficient ways. And that's what we focus on. And we specifically work with language in this context.
Very good, very good. Now, today when we talk about AI, most of the time we think about Gen AI, we think about LLMs, right? Now, for some of us who go back a little into history, and I'll talk a bit about this, I think the early days, this don't exist, right? I did my first programming using Lisp, and I built a very simple model around natural language. And in the early days, of course, the great application on AI was really on expert systems. AI has come a long journey. It's more than just LLM. And LLM today is very much a statistical analytical model which uses past data sets to look at what we can achieve. And I look at it and say that at the end of the day, a lot of the output generated by LLMs are what I call deductive in nature. Based on what you know, you deduce what is possible. Human intelligence, on the other hand, take a very different perspective on things. We are a lot more inductive in what we think, how we think, and we go beyond the 9 dots. The whole thought around hallucination is a big kind of subject nowadays. We say AI hallucinates a lot. But honestly, when you look deeper into the whole idea of hallucination, it means that there's some truth. You know there's some truth, but you're blinded and you think otherwise. Now, in terms of the AI model, does it know the truth? It does not. It really relies on the data set that is collected, analyzed, and produced something. Whether a horse has 5 legs or 4, it doesn't really know. Right? It just basically uses past data and generate information for you. So hallucination to an AI system is just a term, but really it doesn't have the intelligence context that we humans carry with us and use it accordingly. I'm going to turn to Francisco now, because I think this is a very important topic, a very important discussion, that current LLMs perhaps have certain perceived challenges and perceived limitations that we need to see how we address them. And this is important because if we were to build AI systems that are more human-centric, we have to understand what LLMs can do for us and what we can go beyond that. And I'll just close with a simple comment here before I pass to Francisco. In a very recent interview by Ian LeCun, I'm sure all of you know Ian LeCun, the Turing Award recipient, right? He says that the next generation of AI builders have to look beyond LLM. Now, if the top guy is saying that, where do you think and how far do you think LLM will go? So I'll leave you with that disturbing thought, right? I'll leave you with that disturbing thought. We'll talk a bit more as we go along. But Francisco, over to you. Tell us more about the work and why we think there are some perceived limitations and challenges.
Yeah, so I think at a very fundamental level, we typically think that large language models build a model of the world, which is in fact not true. They are modeling language. And this is a big difference. We humans, we build the model of the world, and it's basically our artifacts that are used to teach the LLMs what language is. And I think this is already astonishing, the degree to which this is feasible. I was discussing with my early customers the fact that is it even possible to compute language? And most of the people said no at the time, because there is the necessity of some, I don't know, fluid in our brain, basically, that makes this step of intelligence. But I think this is very important to realize that what the LLM knows is how to produce language. And maybe another aspect that I think is a bit under-discussed currently, we mostly look at the output of the LLM as the text that we get back once we enter something into the prompt. Reality is that there is already another output that has been generated, which was not shown to us, which is in fact the understanding of the human. And I think that's an important topic, especially when we speak about the human-centric system design, sort of, that we become aware that the maybe even bigger phenomenon that we have here is that an AI is capable of understanding us in terms of language. So if some time ago we were faced with a technical device, let's say, we had to learn how to talk to this device in order for it to make what we want. Now, for the first time, we have a technology where basically we can just express our wishes and our goals as we would towards another human. And the device has at least the potential to properly understand us. So we can tell a robot, come over, and it will figure out what it actually needs to do to basically come close to us. In the first instance, even understanding that when I say come over, I mean come close to me. So I think that is something that we have to investigate more. And in my feeling, it will be about dramatic in the sense of user interface as was, let's say, Windows or a couple of decades ago, where suddenly we could, instead of typing something in and you had to know what you type, you could actually point on the screen to something that you wanted to manipulate. And I think this is kind of the same order of magnitude.
Very good. So as you can tell, there's a lot more behind than what is produced as an output in the 5 paragraphs that generative AI tools can produce for you. What does that mean? I'll leave you with one message. In today's world, it is not about how much you know. It is about how much more can you learn, right? If it's pure memory reproduction, the books are all there. You punch a couple of words on Google or any of these Gen AI tools, you get lots of information. So why do you bother remembering everything? Or just having lunch with my son before coming to this panel. He's doing a program on applied AI. He's telling me that, well, whatever the lecturer, the professor tells me, I could find it myself. He's trying to build a tool on generating music. So he does a lot of modeling and kind of training for the music generator, and he feels very frustrated because each time he generates it, he gets about 60% accuracy. He doesn't get what he wants to desire, and that tool could have been messed up. So can you do better than that? Can we even go beyond the 100% accuracy that we perceive we want to achieve? So I have particularly identified education as a very important piece where the use of AI has to be a bit more human-centric. And of course, my associate here, Pablo, comes from Learnovate, which is a spin-off from Trinity College in Ireland. And they look deep into how AI can be applied in the learning space. So I want to hear from Pablo on some of the thinking and expectations that we are looking at in terms of future AI applications in education that's going to make a difference. And now, of course, all of you in hearing about Gen AI and The use of ChatGPT in school is becoming a big question mark. Do you stop students from using ChatGPT? Or do you teach this child, the learner, how to use ChatGPT to augment his learning capability? So, Pablo, can you tell us more about some of the work that you're doing and the use of AI in the learning space, in the education space?
Yeah, sure. So what we do is let me tell you the story of how normally a learn of it process with our customers will work. So customers they love AI, not even knowing what is AI. So that's a problem. That's the first problem that we have. So they come to us. Someone said that AI is the future. Actually, someone said that AI is the present, even the past, because now we have generative AI, as you said. So they just want to introduce and integrate AI and generative AI in their services. So what we do is we help them, we support them to integrate their services into education environments, into the classroom. So the classroom is made up by teachers and students. Teachers and students are humans, right? So we humans, we have a way to communicate, to interact, and then there's technology that has its way. And then we have the technologists that have their own way. So each one of them, they have a different way to interact. So what we do is we try to make create a bridge for them to be able to communicate, to use a common language. So it's about, the idea is that we need to explain to our customers, how do we use AI? How do you use AI? Why do you want to use AI? Why do you want to introduce generative AI in your services? And the most important thing is that we need to identify first the problem that they need to solve, because there's always a problem that the customers need to solve. So why do you think generative AI is the solution? So before starting thinking about solution, let's just try to define first clearly the problem that you're trying to solve. Because maybe the generative AI is not the solution. Maybe not even technology is the solution, because it's a human-centric. That's the idea, using the human-centric design. I'm not saying that I'm trying to remove the technology from the equation, because I am a technologist. I'm a telecommunications engineer. I've been working for 20 years in engineering, but from my perspective, I can use that knowledge, that expertise, that being as a technologist, I can see the challenges. I can see how people normally think about first the solution, and they think the solution is technology, and now it's AI, and now it's generative AI. So it's the other way around. We need to think first about the problem to be solved, about the human, what they need as humans, and obviously we can talk about. We mentioned hallucinations. We mentioned that in the previous panel. There's more than hallucinations. It's a bias. The data has to be prepared. They say that the data is meaningfully tagged, but who is tagging the data? Is that another machine tagging the data? No, it's we humans, we are tagging the data. We humans, we are preparing the data. So we humans have a lot of bias. We have our cultural bias. We have our education bias. We have our family's bias. So there's a lot of bias. That's a huge challenge. And that comes along with trust. That's the end of the story. At the end of my answer to you, Oliver. It's about trust. So people, they don't want to they don't want to use a black box. They want to buy a black box, but because someone said that they will solve your problem. They want to understand how that box actually works. So we need to introduce the concept of explainable AI. Okay, how to try to explain how the machine works, how the machine gives you back the answer that you asked for. So that's another topic. And there's more challenges, lack of context. We can dig into that if you like.
Thank you. I think the emphasis on bias is a very important discussion, right? I was consulting with some companies once. This human recruitment firm came to me and said, I want to use LLM, right? I've got 30 years of records, successful applicants who are now doing very well with their company. How can I take that, convert it into some Gen AI model, right? And then ensure that my future clients get the best candidates. And I look at them and say, hey, hold on. What you have is a data set of successful candidates. You probably do not have a data set of successful candidates who declined the job. You probably do not know why some of the candidates who didn't continue with the process. You also may not know what happened during the process that you place the candidate onto the job. So your whole data set, even though it has 30 years of data history, but it may not have given you the full perspective. And well, like what Pablo and Francisco has highlighted along the way, if I can kind of summarize, paraphrase what they said, a lot of the times, right, we humans have the way of dealing with things which may not be in the history of our knowledge. We have this intuition, we have this capability to induce what we want to achieve based on the problem that we are seeing. I mean, many of us could be executives, managers, senior professionals in your organization. And if your team member comes to you and say, boss, I have a problem. Nobody has done it before. We can't solve it. What would you do? You get very frustrated with that comment, right? You probably say, go back and figure out how to solve it. And the same with AI systems today, right? If it is purely based on data sets of history and things have never happened before, how do you expect it to solve your problem moving forward? So we need to build solutions that dovetail, combine, integrate between humans and technology, so that as the technology provide you with some augmented intelligence of what is possible, you as a human can do more. One of my favorite movie is Iron Man. I'm sure most of you have seen Iron Man, right? Jarvis, a beautiful name. Just another really very intelligent system. No big deal. But what it does at the end of the day is the tool provides a lot of alternative inputs for the human, for Iron Man to make the final decision. But for the human being, for the Iron Man to actually be able to understand what the tool provides to you and be able to generate the final decision, you need to understand what the technology can do for you, what the limitations that it has, right? We humans actually go beyond just understanding what works. We want to know what don't work. And for those of you who were in the panel earlier, talk about World War II planes and how they analyze the planes that got shot and where are the parts where the planes get shot. But really, they do not analyze the planes that got shot down and the planes were never found. So your data set is limited. So coming back to our discussion, we need to build systems that are more human-centric, that can kind of augment what we can do best in the final decision process. And I want to integrate a bit around the part of robotics. Most robots at the end of the day will become part of our life. Not, of course, the machines in the factories, the automation line where it picks and drops. I think robots today are becoming closer to you, where robots can live with you at home in different forms, different factors. Some look like humans, some look like dogs, and so on and so forth, right? But very interestingly, that means we need to build AI solutions that sit inside the robot that's more human-centric. So I want to kind of turn to my two panelists again, right, and ask them what are the important factors to consider in building AI into robotics that we must consider as we move forward. So Francisco, I'm going to start with you. What do you think?
So my number one requested feature is definitely efficiency, because you need to pack as much information that you can into a mobile device that basically has to react in real time. So it cannot depend on some cloud uplink, I would suppose, at least for most of the applications. So I think getting the whole engine as efficient as possible is the number one topic. The second one, as I already said, will be the interface, of course, for understanding the human where the robot interacts with. And the third might not be obvious, but I'm experiencing this on the software development side is the programming of robots. It's much easier to explain to a robot in natural language what it is supposed to do than writing it in some kind of code that ends up in some description of three-dimensional movements and so on. I mean, that's not my discipline, but I suppose that's pretty tricky. So it might be much easier to basically describe verbally, for a human at least, what the movement or the reaction to some input might be. Yeah.
Two to three very important points here, right? One is really efficiency, right? How do you make sure that the whole process of the automation and the use of AI in robots is efficient? Second is the language that you want to use, right? In our spoken language, it's very interesting how we articulate ourselves. This morning, the minister used a number of very local terms: hawker centers, tauges. You know, for foreigners, they may not understand what that is. So how do you build that context into the discussion, right? That allows the machine that, if you put it very bluntly, goes down to 0 and 1s in its operation. How do you translate that intelligence? So, Pablo, from an education perspective, how do you see are the important factors that we need to teach the next generation in applying AI for the robotics space?
Well, yeah, I like stories, so I'm going to tell you I like movies, and I want to tell you another story. 10 years ago, we had this European Union funded project. It's a collaborative research project with other schools. At that time, I was the instructor. That was my hat at that time, 10 years ago. So my headmaster of the school, she came saying, Pablo, we need to build robotics labs here in our school in Spain. At that time I was in Spain. But we need to build a robotics clubs also in Czech Republic, in Finland, and in Greece. So I said, yeah, okay, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that collaboratively. All together, we're gonna build robotics clubs in every country. And that's what we did. For 2 years, we built those robotics clubs. So we help teachers and students to learn how to build a robot, because the aim at the end of the project was for all of them to join us in a contest in Czech Republic to see how the robots that they build, how these robots, the typical robot that they have to follow the line. That was a classical example. Okay, so just try to build that robot, and you have 1 year to do that. So that was 10 years ago. So that implied how to use Arduino, for example, or how to connect sensors, external sensors, and capture data to the Arduino platform, and then how to develop the software with C# that make the robot kind of using the sensors and following the line. But that was 10 years ago. So how do we introduce AI there? How will you introduce Gen AI there? So let me give you another example, another story. So at Learn Center, we use different methodologies to approach how to help our clients to develop their services, their ideas. So one of the examples is one of the methodologies that we use is coming from Google Ventures. There's a guy. There used to be a guy there. He's not there anymore. You know how these guys from California, they normally work. So he moved out of Google, but at that time he was in Google Ventures, and the guy is called Jack Knapp. So Jack Knapp, he created this methodology called Sprint. So in Sprint, you develop the Jack Knapp methodology helps teams to develop ideas collaboratively in 5 days. From the very beginning of the idea, talking to the experts, to the day number 5, where they have a prototype that they build on day number 4, and then they can test with final users in 5 days. Okay, so in the book, he talks about a company that was asked to build a robot to be used in a hotel service, to bring you your drinks to the room. So now I leave you that question. How will you build that now, Jake? I would love to talk to Jake now and say, how do you build that now? How do you introduce AI and ChatGPT into that robot that they used to be in the hotel, delivering the service to the hotel room? I'll leave there.
Wonderful. Given that we have about 5 minutes left, I'm going to ask our two panelists to give one more last comment. What advice would you give the audience here in terms of the use of AI in robotics, particularly centered around human-centric design? Francisco, one last advice.
Yeah, I would try to pick up the topic of bias. I think bias can become particularly tricky in robotics because it's interacting with the real world directly, physically. So I think bias has to be understood much better than it is today, especially because bias is built in humans also. Yeah, so it's a natural phenomenon. The problem with the AI is that it's mixing up billions of biases of billions of people. So nobody exactly knows what comes out. So I think figuring out what bias is, if you are involved in a project like this, your own bias maybe, could be helpful in designing new systems.
Okay, so watch out for bias. Prabhu?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna pick one, okay? Because I was thinking, okay, let's pick one, Pablo, just one. So I'll pick you pick the bias, I'll talk about co-creation. That's co-creation. That's very complicated. I know that for a company, co-creating a solution, a product, a software with your customers it's very risky sometimes. Would you bring your customers to develop your product? Would you bring your final users? Is that possible? Is that feasible? So at Learning Center, and I keep it with my promo of the Learning Center at Trinity College, we believe that yes, it is possible, and we have a couple of examples. Like we have a project that is called DG Academy, where we build a platform, a learning platform for and with and by learners and teachers with intellectual disabilities. Okay, so this is our audience. This is our cohort, and we're building the platform for them and with them. So that would be my advice. If you can think about how to bring those users, yeah, that would be
wonderful cooperation. Let me add a final statement before we end this panel discussion. I believe AI in robotics has to augment human capability and extend our potential. And I believe in the simple formula 0 to 1 and 1 plus. Not difficult to remember, right? 0 to 1, 1 plus. If 1 is the ideal state of performance, you want AI in robotics to bring you closer to 1. AI in robotics must be able to help you bring closer to your ideal performance. 1 plus, if it can achieve the level of 1, your ideal state, AI in robotics should help you to achieve more, to bring you the potential that you never thought could exist. That 1 plus gives you the additional performance level. At the end of the day, I would say this. It is not about better technology. It's about better humans. What can we do to use technology to make us even better? And to do so, you must be able to understand the technology, embrace the technology, use it to augment your capability and your potential. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time, and please join me in thanking my panelists for a wonderful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our panelists for the insightful discussions on the role of AI in human-centric design for robots.